One of the greatest evidence that you could present and discuss as to prove God is language. The very fact that we have such a thing as language, that we could comprise a collection of sounds into different sets of sounds, such as the ones I'm making right now. I'm just moving muscles in my mouth and my throat and my tongue and creating vocal noises that, when most of you who can identify this collection of noises will interpret them as carrying information, your brain would interpret that this sound has meaning, and it would help you understand that meaning so that we could communicate and have a common understanding of language. Why does that even work? Why do we have such a thing as language? Not to mention multiple languages between different groups of people. The same item has many names across languages. And if you are a multi-language speaker, you would know that one word can have many different meanings. For example, the word yes. Yes. In English, it means, well, you affirm, you agree, right? In Hebrew, it would be ken. German, it would be ja. I can go down the list. Da. In Russian, right? Different sounds, but you know that if you hear it, automatically you would relate it to the set of sounds known as language in order to interpret it and know which language I'm talking about. Your brain does all the work. You really have nothing to do with it. You're not your brain, obviously. Your brain is much faster than you, because your brain is the fleshy part that works on instinct. It already has its program built in. The mind is separate from the brain, which is another great argument for the existence of God, because, but that's another subject. But language itself, why do we have such a thing? It doesn't make sense. Now the evolutionist would claim, well, it evolved because we needed it. That is such a weak sauce excuse. What do you mean evolved because you needed it? In order to survive and communicate? That doesn't even make sense. The theory of evolution really based its whole thesis on random, one-by-one mutations over millions of years. The key word here is random. Evolution is random, or else it wouldn't be evolution, it would be by design. If it was designed on purpose, then it's no longer random. It is by design, and if you have a design, then you have a designer. And obviously that would be someone outside of the creature, because, well, the creature can't really design anything. He is the created. You have no control over your DNA. You can't just mutate yourself in order to give your child wings. That's a bunch of nonsense. So the very fact that our brains have this ability to interpret sounds, compress them into sets of words, and interpret meaning out of them in order to communicate. What a miracle. What a most incredible thing. Evolution cannot explain this. Just because you have a need for something does not explain how it came to be. They're so foolish, all of those godless atheists with the weak sauce argument. Well, it was needed, so we developed a thing. Who's we, exactly? And how did you develop? I thought it was random. Just because you need something doesn't make it show up. You ever notice that? If you need some money, it doesn't always just show up. If you gotta cross the Atlantic, you don't all of a sudden grow fins. You have to fly over a valley, you don't just grow wings. It doesn't work like that. You don't get things just because you need them. And that's contrary to what you preach in your theory of evolution. Because again, it's all about random mutations over time. One mutation here, another mutation there. That doesn't explain anything. Because again, random, you cannot have any design to it. And obviously language is a design intelligence because it's already built in. It's not something you really learn. You're already built in with the ability, which is why children, upon hearing and watching, they start understanding language, and soon enough they start speaking the language. Their brain does all of the work. They don't know what they're doing. Dada, mama. They already start building up that collection. And you notice that children that grow up in a multi-language home, or you teach them Hebrew and English, they will start speaking both languages interchangeably, and over time will be able to distinguish one from another. They will say sometimes yes, sometimes can, but over time, when they reach 3, 4, 5, 6 years of age, those languages will be distinct, which means that their brain has been able to separate the two sets of vocal sounds and interpret each within its own confinement of a language. That is just mind-boggling to think about if you actually do spend the time to think about it. Why do you understand what I'm telling you? All you hear is a bunch of sounds. You don't see me, you don't know me, you just hear sounds on a speaker, and yet you know what I mean. You can receive the transmission of information. And information by itself is evidence of intelligent design. It's not just... And even that, by the way, for some tribes, that would contain information. In Africa, they make all kinds of sounds. And they can interpret what we're talking about because that is their language. Their brains are synced in. It's like, this means that. Not to mention people who are born deaf, blind, Helen Keller, etc. They have a language, Just because they don't make sounds, they don't hear, before they even learn sign language and, to use your fingers to spell, obviously they have thoughts in their head. They have to think in some language. Have you ever thought about that? There is a language that is without words inside of your mind as you think. Now, most of us, we grow up speaking a certain tongue, and hence we think now in that tongue, and we can hear our thoughts in English or Hebrew, whatever. Even in your dreams, you speak a certain language. But what about people who never learned outside languages, like Helen Keller? They have a language all to themselves in which they think, a spiritual tongue, not manifested in sounds. It has no iconography that you can put down on paper. So amazing how God designed it, because obviously the Lord is the creator of sound, of language, of information, of communication. He invented these things and designed it, and He put that in us as He created us in His image to be able to communicate in such a wide variety of sounds. Very few creatures can make as many different sounds as us. You have a few, like the parrots, right? They can mimic you and, a few others. But for the most part, the human beings really are the only ones who can make all of the sounds and mimic other animals. You see people all the time doing monkey noises and goat noises, right? We love doing cows, moo. Cows don't do humans, but humans can do cows. Interesting. You have to think about these things. Do not be fooled by the foolish things of this world, which they call wisdom, all that evolution mess. There is no such thing. It's all a bunch of lies to deceive you and kill your soul, to derail you from following God, keeping His commandments, living a holy, righteous life. Doesn't even make sense. There's not a bit, not a drop of intelligence in their foolish arguments. They're all so stupid and think they're so smart. I cannot wait for God to humble them. And they will be humbled soon enough. But as for you, beloved, if you can understand the words I'm telling you, you just be steadfast in your faith to the Lord. Be righteous, be holy. Wash your garments in the blood of the Lamb. Do what is just and right. Keep the commandments, honor the Shabbat. Please your Heavenly Father. Walk according to His ways. Don't listen to the foolishness of people. People have always been at enmity with God. You cannot serve two masters. You either serve the Lord or you serve the world. You cannot do both. If you try to please the world and have relations with the world and have peace with the world, you are by default at enmity with God. Friendship with the world means enmity with God. The world hates God. Remember that. We are in the world, but not of the world. Be holy, set apart. Do not blend in and be like the rest of those godless men and women. Sanctify yourself. Judgment is coming soon.